How's it going, guys? Be sure, obviously, to hit the like button, subscribe button if you haven't already. Um, yeah, we're gonna talk about the horror. Like, we're gonna be talking about basically anything you guys want tonight. We're not gonna be talking about just one topic. So, be sure to hit the like button, and yeah, that would help a lot if you guys could hit the like button for me. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about obviously, just horror movies, I guess in general. Like we're not gonna just talk about one thing. Um, so yeah. Again, yeah, sorry I had to keep on. I guess I was supposed to do the stream yesterday, but I had to keep on rescheduling because my sleep schedule wasn't like some nights I would have like trouble sleeping, and then I'd have to like take a nap or something. And then you know, you guys know how that is sometimes. I bet. But yeah, we're gonna be talking about horror films in general. Like, so you could ask me anything about any movie as long as it's horror related. Though that's the only. Um. So tomorrow, of course, we're gonna be before we get started here. Tomorrow we have a stream. We're gonna be talking about the Halloween franchise. So should be a lot of fun. Obviously tomorrow night, and you guys will see it. I mean, I usually schedule my streams anyways, but yeah. So we're gonna be obviously talking about just slasher films in general. So, um, but you guys know like the most underrated, I guess, a slasher film is probably the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I think those are like the most like underrated ones. Um, and then obviously there is, so you got Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You got, I just feel that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not really as like talked about, I guess, like as other movies out there. Personally, that's just my opinion. Um, and yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is not, the franchise. Obviously, I like it. It's obviously fourth on my list right now. So obviously, I got Scream number one, Halloween two, um, Friday the 13th three, and then Texas Chainsaw Massacre at four. So I got it at four. So it is in my top five still. Um, and a lot of people will be like probably asking like, why is it not in my, like, why is it not higher? Well, because I just think Friday the 13th is probably just a little more entertaining than a little more, anyways. And Halloween is, I feel like, more just entertaining. So even though, yeah, I do like the films, of course, I think it's an overall great franchise, but there is some movies that I guess I don't like. There's a lot of movies that I don't like at all. Like, there's, I think it was 19, I think it was part two and part three I didn't really care for. Um, The ones that I did like though, obviously was 1974 and so yeah, 1974 and the remake, and also the beginning, and that came out in 2006, which that one I think was pretty good as well. And also 3D. Now a lot of people had a problem with 3D, but I think 3D was always. I think that was always a good film. You know, I think that was like the last great one. Honestly, even though yeah, I know they weren't at the original Texas Chainsaw House. From like the original, but honestly though, I think like the kills and all that is just so well done. Like you know, I personally liked it. I like to to see something new, even though I know like people were probably hoping to see the original Texas Chainsaw House in that film. But it was kind of cool to I guess get something new for you don't have to be in the same. You don't have to have like the same like setting. It's okay to like change it up every once in a while. I think. Um, so that's the reason why I kind of liked. I liked it a lot. I thought it was like the last like great one. Like personally, because obviously the 2022 one wasn't as good. I watched that and I didn't really care for it. Um, and it was just like the look of Leatherface in that film just wasn't. It didn't look right to me. Like I feel like the look of him in 3D looked a lot better. But of course, that's just my opinion. But yeah, I mean, I don't understand. Like, there's a lot of people, of course, that has their own like preference and what they like, I guess. And there's people out there that, of course, hated 3D. A lot of people think it's one of the worst in the franchise, which I don't agree with that personally. I think 2022 is obvious. I think that's the worst. I mean, there's really no debate there, in my opinion. Um, I mean, the look of again the mask, just overall the storyline. Oh, and also the 2017 one, which that one wasn't that great either. Like it was just Leatherface didn't have a mask or anything in that film, which was kind of weird to me. I didn't think that was good at all. Like I thought that was, I felt like they should have added, the Leatherface mask in that film. Personally, but they decided not to. You know, it was just disappointing. I didn't really care for it as much. It wasn't as good as 3D. It was just I don't know. It was just like weird, I guess. Um, and of course, there's gonna be people that like it, but for me, I can't watch I can't watch it for that long because I just don't really feel like it's that great. I don't think it's comparable to obviously the remake, and also to um, so the remake, the new beginning, and or the beginning. Excuse me, I said the new beginning. um, 3D, of course, it does not compare to any of those films, in my opinion. And obviously, 1974. But yeah, overall, I think it's a. I mean, it's a decent franchise. You know, it's not. It's not totally garbage or anything. Like, I don't think it's totally garbage, but there is movies that are not as enjoyable, I guess. Um, you know, there's a lot of movies that are as enjoyable, like I was saying, the 1985, or Texas Chainsaw Part Two, Part Three. It was just like the look of Leatherface I didn't like, like and just like the storylines were just kind of like cheesy, I guess, in a way. Um, but other than that, I think it's a really decent franchise. It's not, again, it's not totally trash, but also it's not totally like great either. Like, there's a lot of there's a lot of movies that, of course, that I don't like, but overall, I think it's a decent franchise. Like, and also, again, I just don't really understand like why they decided to change the mask. It goes back to what I was saying. Like, if okay, let's just look at Ghostface, right, or Michael Myers, like how they like kept like the same mask like in every film. Well, that's what they should have did with Leatherface. They should have had that same, the same look that he had. And even though, yeah, he kind of did, but at the same time, they changed like his hair. They changed, like, I don't know. His look was just kind of like weird, I guess, compared to like 1974's. But that's just my opinion. So I felt like if they would have kept it, kind of the same as 1974's, and just kept that same look throughout the whole franchise, I think that it would be Texas Chainsaw would definitely be higher on my list. But I do think that Texas Chainsaw is an underrated film. Like, the franchise, doesn't get enough like praise. Like, nobody really talks about it. Um, Obviously, you guys know the video game came out, which was, it was fun for a little bit, then kind of got a little dry because when you get into a session, so like when you're like in a session or whatever, there's like sometimes you can't find like players, which I don't think that's fun at all. And I just felt like I just didn't really care for it. Especially like, okay, when it first came out, I was excited, but then after that, just I don't know, it just got dry. Like, You know, it was just like, man, like it was fun at first, but again, there's just not. I don't think there's enough like survivors. You know, that's really the only thing. If there was like more like survivors, I guess I think it would have been a lot funner, and I think it would have been similar to Friday the 13th, the game. You know, which I don't have a problem like with like the skins or anything like that. I just have a problem with the overall just I don't feel like there's enough like players, you know? I think there's only maybe like four like survivors in total, maybe even five. You know, and to me that's not I don't think that's enough. Especially for only four survivors. Like that's just not I don't feel like that's enough, you know. I feel like they should have did a lot more, maybe even like nine. Or even like 10. You know, like I felt like that would have been a little funner. But that's just my personal opinion on it. Like, but I will say maybe it will get better if they like if Gun Media ends up like updating it and they do add more to the mix, like add more survivors, because I think that's the only thing that they have like missed was obviously the survivors, not having enough. Um, and that's really the only thing that I didn't really like, because it seemed like in most sessions you couldn't find anyone. Like everyone was just like hiding or doing something. Like sometimes you couldn't even find them, which is kind of not. I don't think that's really that fun. Um, as compared to the Friday the 13th game, I think the Friday the 13th game had about. I would say they had about maybe 10 survivors at most, close to that. Close to 10 survivors, anyways. Um, but yeah, overall, I think honestly, I think it's a good, I mean, it's an overall great franchise. Like, we're not just talking about the video game; we're talking about the franchise as well. Um, but I do feel like the video game they should have did a lot more. They should have added more survivors. More. There's overall just more, I guess. Yeah, survivors. That's really the only thing, because I felt like Friday the 13th. What it did good was talking about the game, of course, was that I had like 10 survivors, and then obviously you had yeah, it just felt funner, it felt a lot funner because it wasn't hard, I guess, to find. It wasn't hard to like find like survivors. Like when you get into like a session and you can't find survivors, well, that's a big issue, you know. But no, Friday the 13th, you were able to find like survivors a lot better. I feel like Friday the 13th, the game, Um, but yeah, overall, I think as a franchise, I think it's good, and I definitely think it's unappreciated in a lot of ways. But there is movies that I don't like. But yeah, Friday the 13th. Obviously, we're getting a new video game of that, which is going to be very interesting. Which I was kind of surprised that they were, even like thinking about that, like thinking about making another video game like that. I didn't really expect them to make another one, honestly, but I guess they are because we were supposed to get some, like, obviously we were supposed to get Uber Jason, we were supposed to get um like different like maps as well, like new map, like we were gonna get the space map. We were obviously gonna get the Manhattan map. Um but obviously none of that happened because of the lawsuit. So I think that this is like more of a thing. They're making another game because obviously the last time when they weren't able to update the last game. So I think this new game is going to be basically like it's going to have like the skins that we didn't get. So I guess it's like a part two. It's going to be like a part two. Um, which I'm happy about. I'm excited for that, and I think that's, a lot of people will say, well, it's not made by Gun Media. Well, I agree with that, but at the same time, I'm actually happy about it. I'm really, really happy about it. I think because they're saying that it was going to be more realistic, you know. So I don't know what to really expect, but to be honest with you, I'm pretty excited for it. Because I personally think that the Friday the 13th, the game was, obviously it just sucked that the lawsuit happened. We didn't get, all any of the skins that we had wanted, that we were supposed to get. Okay, like Uber Jason, like we were supposed to legitimately get him. They even had like a trailer for him and everything. They had a what's that mode called? Uh, I forget that mode, but you do like a certain like objectives or whatever to unlock like the Uber Jason trailer, whatever. Basically, him like walking out like, and I actually got to do like I saw the Uber Jason like, and I actually unlocked. Basically, it was like a reveal, I guess. Um, and yeah, so they even had like a reveal for him. They had it all ready to go. Then, of course, the lawsuit happened, and that interfered with those plans. I'm gonna have to look up the mode just real fast because I remember the mode. I just don't remember like. I don't remember all like offhand right now. Uh, I'm gonna go Friday the 13th. The game. One minute here. I'm just trying to. I remember the mode. I just don't remember. I think it's called the. It's not the challenges. Um, uh, I don't remember, but I am looking right now. As of right now, I'm looking. Um, but yeah, it's that mode where you basically like got to put like certain like codes in um, to unlock stuff. Uh, Man, I forgot that mode name. Man, it's at the tip of my tongue. Uh, yeah, and I'm not talking about the challenges or anything like that. I'm talking about this mode. I think it's called. Man, it's at the tip of my tongue right now. Um, okay, 1 minute here. Like I Oh, virtual cabin. Yeah, virtual cabin. That's the one. That's that mode. Um, yeah, virtual cabin. You know, like you had to basically like put like different like codes in that unlock like certain things. Um, but I learned how to unlock the Jason X reveal, and you had to do like put like certain codes in. I guess um, and I was actually watching like videos about it, and yeah, I got to see. They even had like they had the intro. They had like the reveal. They were ready to release, but sadly, the lawsuit happened. But yeah, but hopefully this new game is going to be good. Hopefully like the new moves and hopefully they're pretty good. But yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. As I was saying, I think it's a good franchise. It's just there's a lot of movies that I don't like. And that's the main reason why. Would I put it over Nightmare on Elm Street? Yes, absolutely. I think it's better than Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't really get into Nightmare on Elm Street that much, as you guys know. I just don't really like. Okay, like I have the box set, of the franchise, but I don't really get into it as much as I do, um, Scream, Halloween, of course, or Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I don't really get into it as much as those films, but I do kind of appreciate them. I know like the Freddy Krueger character. is just kind of, I guess, like weird in a way to me. Like I just didn't really care for. I've never really cared for that character personally. I just think it's kind of like weird in a way. Um, and then obviously you had another a franchise I don't really care about, and that is obviously the Leprechaun franchise. Like I just don't really I don't really get into it for like I don't know. It's probably just because it's more of like a creature kind of film, which is kind of weird. And obviously which I have nothing against leprechauns or anything, but it's just like I don't really understand it as much, you know. It's really not, I guess, like for me. Um, and I've only ever watched the first Leprechaun film with Jennifer Aniston in it. Um, that's the only one that I ever watched. Maybe even part two. May have watched part two. Um, but yeah, other than that, the Leprechaun films are just not. I don't feel like they're as good as. I don't feel like they're as good as like the Child's Play films or the I mean, if you want to get like really like, if I had to choose between Nightmare on Elm Street and the Leprechaun franchise, I'd probably pick Nightmare on Elm Street, over that franchise. But then again, I don't really get into. I don't know. I just don't really get into the nightmare films. Like I do like them, like the very first one, of course, the original one. Okay, that's always gonna be like a classic. But and I also like part two as well. Like and a lot of people didn't really like that one, but honestly, like part two. Then later, it just started like getting like worse and worse. It just a lot of the films just didn't make as much sense. I guess um, which is kind of crazy. But I guess that's just what happens with franchises sometimes. Sometimes they're really good, and then all of a sudden they just end up getting like they end up getting bad, and like dry. I guess because basically just run out of ideas is what I'm saying. So then they just keep on doing the same old thing, you know. I think that's what happened with the Nightmare franchise. Just kind of, I guess, like ran out of ideas. But yeah, I would put the Child's Play franchise over Nightmare um and also the Leprechaun films. Even though I know the Child's Play films, I know there is a lot of issues with. Of course, every franchise is going to have its issues, but I feel like as like a franchise, I think it is better. It's better than like the Leprechaun films, like because the Leprechaun films, like again, I don't have nothing. I don't have a problem with Leprechauns. It's just I don't really understand it. I really don't understand it at all. Um, It's just not really, I guess, like my type of film, really. Just because, like, I don't know, it's just like he's just like a creature, like I don't know, it's kind of weird. But and then, of course, when they got, when they ended up going to when they made a film with him in like the hood and all that, like, I mean, I thought that was kind of like weird as well. Like, well, I guess I was kind of 50-50 on it. Like, I thought it was good. I thought it was nice. I thought it was like pretty cool to have, him go to the hood. But after a while, I was like, it's kind of like 50-50, that's basically like my feelings. Like, I just don't really, I like the idea, but then again, I thought it was kind of weird. Um, but yeah, the franchise is, I think, pretty good, or not pretty good. Sorry. The Child's Play franchise, I think, is better in a lot of ways. Even though, yeah, the Child's Play franchise, a lot of people didn't like the fact that he was basically in like space, or they just didn't really care for that. And also the remake, which the remake was an absolute disaster. Um, and I don't really understand why they even remake movies nowadays, especially movies that don't need to be remade. I don't understand like why they do that for. Um, One thing that I could give him credit to, one thing that I could give him credit for is that at least they try to, do something, I guess, different and do their own thing, as opposed to, copying from like the original, copying the original film, which that's what they usually sometimes do. They usually like a lot of these remakes are usually like a rehash of like the original like film, which I don't really like. I like it when they do like their own thing, you know, which I do give them credit for that. But at the same time, I did not like the the doll in the film. I did not like obviously the voice actor. Um, I just don't think that film was a good. Like, I think that's probably like the worst in the franchise, because it's, again, like, the look of the doll doesn't really look right to me. I'm always gonna like the original like a lot more, you know. Um, but yeah, that 2019 film, I think, was just an absolute like disaster. You know, that 2019 Child's Play remake, I think, was just an absolute disaster, and that's probably like the only one that I could say. Well, there's all the ones that people don't like, of course, like the Seed of Chucky, um, the Cult of Chucky. The Cult of Chucky, I feel like, was a lot better than the remake, though. Like, even though he was in space, I understand people look at the idea of him being in space, so they think that it's kind of like cheesy. But honestly, I honestly liked, again, the voice actor. Again, Brad Dourif, he always does a good job, and he's just the best at doing the voice for Chucky. So of course I'm always gonna like pick him over anybody, because obviously he's the OG. So how's it going, Scott Walker? Hope your day is going good. But yeah, so there's just a lot of movies out there that like I'm talking about the Child's Play. Like a lot of people just didn't really care for part five or even part four, you know. And I really don't. I really don't mind them. Like especially like the Bride of Chucky and the like the Seed of Chucky. Like a lot of people don't like those films because basically he had like I guess like a wife in those films, so people kind of found that to be a little cheesy. But personally, I would pick those films over the remake. And obviously, you know, the part three, which I think part three is without a doubt. Well, obviously, the original is always going to be like the best, but I think Child's Play 3 was like the best, was the most like underrated one. Like, I just liked, I guess, like the setting. I like the, you know, the military setting, you know, something a little different. It wasn't like the same thing, you know, which, but that's personally me. A lot of people may not like it as much as I do, of course, but I think that was a pretty fun setting, you know, like thought it was just something new and like creative. The most incredible thing has happened over here in Australia yesterday. A part of 50 kilowatts attacked and killed a blue whale off the coast of Western Australia. Wow, that's insane. I didn't see the attack while watching Chris. I read about it. I didn't see the attack on a whale. Wow, that's insane there. Sorry, I mean off the coast of Western Australia yesterday, a part of the coast of Western Australia. That's insane. So that happened. You said today or yesterday? Killer whale attacked the blue whale. Oh, that's crazy. That's insane. There, I've never seen a whale before. Um, and I know they're bigger. They're around the same size as sharks. But yeah, you know, like the Child's Play franchise. Going back to that, um, the Child's Play franchise, I feel like is better than Leprechaun just for those reasons that I was just kind of saying. That's personally just my opinion. Like, I think they're just more like I guess fun. I looked on Wiki a few weeks ago about the Jaws like all the sharks in the Jaws movies in the franchise are related to each other. The shark from the first movie is made of the female shark of the second film. Oh, that's nice. I've never watched the Jaws films as much. I maybe only watched like the first one, the second one, maybe the second one, but I don't really remember. I don't really remember it as much. You know, I heard that it was a pretty good. It's a pretty good film. I know for sure I watched the first one before, but I don't think I watched the second, or I may have watched the second, but that probably was like a while ago when I watched that. So I don't really remember any of it. I don't remember any of the Jaws films like offhand because I'm simply just not really, I guess, a fan of that film. It's basically just about like a shark, you know. Over here in Australia, killer whales known to attack and kill humpback whales, blue whales, ink whales over here, Australia, and sometimes even yeah, like I was saying, I've never seen a whale before in my life. The only thing I've never even seen a shark, but I know that sharks or whales are around the same size as I know they're around the same size as sharks, which that's crazy. I can't imagine ever being like, let's say, like in a boat, like on the ocean, just to have like a shark let's jump out. Like I can't imagine that. That's why the Jaws films, I think that stuff could really happen if you're not careful. You know, and there's a lot of people out there that fish on the ocean and whatnot, and there's a whole bunch of sharks in there, a whole bunch of whales, you know, and yeah, there's just no. I mean, that could legitimately happen. I mean, people don't really realize how dangerous it is to fish in the ocean like that. Because there's a lot of people that do fish for in the ocean. There's a lot of people that fish specifically for sharks, which like baby ones, anyways, not big ones, but baby ones. I mean, there's people that have caught that caught baby ones before. Um, but I'm just saying, like, it's just dangerous in a lot of ways because you don't really know like what to expect. It's kind of like the Jaws film, like shark could just jump out of the water. Yeah, that's scary. That's really scary if you think about it. My father is selling his pub soon, and he and my stepmom and my fiance Trish is being a plane to come to America. What are the do's and don't? Uh, the do's and don'ts. I mean, it's kind of like I guess that's a really good question. Honestly, I really don't know how to answer that. I'm choosing between three places in America: California, Washington State, or New York. Which one of these? Which way? Which one of these cities are the best? A good place to visit? I would probably say probably Washington State, maybe New York, but New York is obviously a lot like busier. Um, and there is a lot of like bad stuff that happens. I mean, there's bad stuff that happens everywhere, but I would probably say maybe New York or Washington State because California. I mean, if you want like warm weather and you want to like go fishing and all that, I think California is probably like the best for you. That like because obviously you don't have to worry about it snowing. You don't have to worry about it. I guess um, you don't have to worry about the winter. You know, it's basically like summer all year round. So between those two, I would say maybe Washington State and New York because New York obviously it is dangerous. There's a lot of stuff that happens everywhere all over the world. Of course everywhere, but like New York is like really busy. There's a lot of like crimes that happen there, of course. Um, like in Harlem, especially like in the Harlem area, like it's like I guess like the hood. So that's where like there's like gangbangers and all that around there. So I guess you got to kind of like be careful of where I guess like the area that you move into, like around there, if you choose to move to New York, because I was willing to. So obviously, my mom and I were actually going to move. Well, my mom was actually going to move to New York originally. Um, and by the way, I don't mean to get off topic. We got to get back on topic. Talking about horror films, but um, my mom and I were going to move to New York originally, but my mom actually wanted to move there back in 1999 when I was a kid. So, but when I got a little older, and that was obviously around when 9/11 happened. Um, but when I got older, when I got older, we had plans. She wanted to move there. She wanted to basically get away from where we currently live. She wanted to get like a job in New York. She wanted to legit move there. Um, and I was gonna actually move. I was actually gonna go with her at the time, to be honest. Just to get away from things that go on here. But now thinking about it, I don't think it's a good idea. I really don't. I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a. It's definitely not a. It's not like a safe place, and because again, you have a lot of bad. Of course, there's going to be criminals everywhere, but I'm just saying, like a place like New York where it's like busy and all that. I mean, it's not really a safe like place. Um, so yeah, I'm personally never gonna move there now. Even though I was going to originally, like I was gonna move there to get away from where I currently live. I was gonna move with my mom there um, originally, but I decided not to because I just felt like you know it was honestly it was a lot. It was I don't want to move to a big city like that. I thought it would have been weird. Um, so I actually like where I live. Right now, currently I live Which, yeah, we're gonna have to get back to horror here. We can't just talk about, we got to get back to horror movies here, but um, I don't want to get too much off topic. But um, I was originally going to move there because I just felt like I felt like I wanted to move away. I just wanted to move away for some reason. I don't know why. I was legit going to move with her. I was going to follow her there because she had plans. I mean, she had plans to go there. So, and also, once again, I know we got to get back on topic talking about horror films. Even though, yeah, I don't mind like talking about other stuff every once in a while, but we got to stick to horror films. Uh, but yeah, that was my original plan back in like 2018. Like I was gonna I was gonna move to New York with my mom at that time, which I would have to say it was probably back in like 2018 ish when I was planning on doing that. Um, which I didn't really like at the time. Like I don't know. I just thought it was a bad idea, because like all the traffic and plus my mom didn't move there. She didn't end up moving there, so she obviously decided just to stay. And I think it's a better idea to stay here because where I live currently, it's not. I would say it's where I grew up my whole life, and plus I wouldn't be used to living in like a big city like that. It would be, I guess, kind of weird. Um, and plus, and another thing too is that I wouldn't have been able to see my family as much, like especially like on my dad's side, like I would never been able to like hang out with family as much on Christmas. Wouldn't be able to basically like see them, you know. Which that was another thing that kind of, I guess, kind of what I was thinking about, like. So I was like, I don't feel like it's a good idea personally. Um, because they do call it the biggest city in the world, and that's what it is, the biggest city in the world currently. It's the biggest city in America, one of the biggest cities. Um, and yeah, there's a lot that goes on there, a lot from robberies, people killing each other. There's a lot of which of course there's going to be that everywhere. There's going to be bad stuff that happens everywhere. I know that. But in New York, with like being like the biggest city in America, like I mean, the crime rate there is absolutely just hurt. Like, it's crazy. There's a lot of bad stuff that happens there. A lot of like gang banging, which that happens like everywhere. But I don't know. I just felt like it was a good idea, to stay where I currently live. Because I didn't really. If I would have moved to New York, I honestly, I would have felt stupid about myself. Like I would have felt like depressed in a way because I wouldn't have like been used to that. I wouldn't have been used to that. Living in a big city like that. So, and that's another thing that I didn't really. That's another thing that I felt like I didn't want to leave my family. I thought it was a good idea just to stay where I currently live because I was just saying that at the time I was thinking about it. But anyways, we're gonna get back to horror. I'm not gonna get too much off topic here, but where in America, California, New York, has the most Native American population? Yeah, and I forgot to tell you that I'm actually Native American as well. Um, I'm obviously Potawatomi, Odawa, and Little River. Um, and obviously, I come from. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Pokagon band, a Potawatomi, but obviously that's in Michigan, of course, that tribe. But yeah, that. So I have obviously three types of Native American. Um, but yeah, I didn't know if you guys like knew that ever, but oh, you're asking me those questions because yeah, yeah. Like realistically, if you're going to move to a place, I don't think it's a really good idea to move to a big city. I think a small town, small towns is a little better because you don't have to deal with a lot. That's personally just me. Even though there's bad things that happens all over the world, you know. There's anything can happen anywhere really, but I think they should do a remake of Cujo instead of Saint Bernardette. Yeah, we actually talked about that before, and I was just saying that I really wasn't like a big fan of Cujo because again, it's just like basically just an animal, killing people, which it's not. I don't know. I don't really find any interest in that personally, but sorry, I didn't mean to offend you. Oh no, that's fine. Um, you didn't offend me at all, but I was just kind of letting you know that I am native. And my tribe is obviously in Michigan. Stu's houses is definitely on the top of my list of things that I want to see in America and stay there. Yeah, So you're legitimately thinking about moving to America? Yeah, come to America for a holiday for the first time. Asking you all these questions. Yeah, like if you're gonna come to America, during the holidays, you probably, I think New York is probably that place. Um, because of all the decorations, all the even though yeah, it does snow there, which that's not good. That snows there, but heard you. Have you heard any news about Matthew Lillard? Nope. Haven't heard any news. And the reason why we haven't heard any news is because they're trying to keep it possibly a secret. They're not trying to ruin the movie for anybody. So no, they're not gonna make. They're not. There's not gonna be any news about Matthew Lillard because again, if they do that, well, you're basically again spoiling the film for everyone. So that's not gonna ever happen. They're not gonna just straight up come out and say that like that he's gonna be in the film. Like no, like they're not gonna just come out and say that. Like they, I mean, you're basically at that point you're spoiling the film for everyone. So yeah, no, we're not gonna get any news about Matthew Lillard. We may get news about possibly Mark Kincaid, aka Patrick Dempsey, but maybe not even that though. Maybe they'll keep that a secret as well. But yeah, the Matthew Lillard thing, they're trying to keep that a secret. If he's truly, coming back, there's not going to be any news. There's not going to be any news about him. There's not going to be any news about him at all. Like because again, if you give it, that's basically giving it away. Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you because oh no no no, it's completely fine. I just wanted to let you know, like because I don't know if you knew or not. I know there's some other people in the community that have native in them, like people that we know, of course. But I was basically just kind of like telling you like that I have three types in me, so I'm kind of okay. Like I'm more I'm more native than I am like Irish. I do got a little bit of Irish in me, but I'm more Native American than I am, Irish. So I was like got three different types of Native American in me. So and I also got too a little bit of German. I got a little bit of German, not as much, but a little bit. Um, and then obviously Irish too, like a little bit, not as much. But yeah, Obviously, my tribe is linked in Michigan. It's obviously in Michigan, my tribe. You know what you're going are they're doing with Matthew Lillard if he is in Scream 7, it's going to be the same thing what happened with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield for Spider-Man No Way Home. Yep. I totally agree with that. I think it's going to be the exact same thing because again, they're not going to just come out and say that they're going to be in the film because at that point you're basically giving away the secret. You're spoiling the film for everyone, you know. And if Matthew Lillard is going to sit there and lie about um, is if Matthew Lillard is gonna lie about not being in the film, well, there's a reason for that. He's not going to again come out and say that he's going to be in the film. Like the directors ain't going to say that. Like they're going to keep that all a secret. So because you're basically spoiling the film for everyone. So I mean, that's the way I look at it. Like the directors are not going to just come out and straight up and say, well, he's going to be in the film or he's returning. Like, no, they're not going to do that because at that point, you're basically going to be spoiled and then nobody's going to go watch your movie, because nobody wants to go into the movie already knowing what's going to happen. Like, and the only thing that I hope they do not do, I hope they do not like spoil anything in the trailer, you know, because I feel like in Scream 6 they kind of like spoiled a lot of things in Scream 6 like in the trailer. Like they showed us like too much. They didn't really do a good job, I don't feel, of like hiding a lot of like moments, Um so we kind of already knew like what scenes like somewhat like what scenes that we were getting, you know, the whole subway train thing, like that was in the trailer, of course. Um so I feel like stuff like that. I mean, I just feel like they gave away too much. So that's one thing that I hope they do not do for Scream 7. Hopefully they try to hide as much. Hopefully they don't give away as much, scene. Like, hopefully they don't spoil it for anyone in the trailer because there's a lot of trailers that, again, Scream 6, kind of did that. And that would be the only thing that I wouldn't, that I don't want the trailer to, like, what's it say if Stu's in the film? Well, I don't want the trailer to show him or anything like that because that's basically, again, that's like spoiling the film. So they need to try to hide as much as possible. Are you a hater at Native American the same as Ralph? No, I'm just regular Native American, like Potawatomi, Odawa, and Little River. That's basically all I am. Um, But yeah, and obviously I have family that were kind of like I said, had a little bit of Irish and also a little bit of German. So it's kind of like, but I'm more native than I am any of those. Like, but I think, yeah, I think there's a couple people that I know in the community, obviously, that we know. Um, Obviously, Carrie is also like a native too. She said that she has native, and obviously the Night Watch's guest, I forget her name, but she's also native. Like she's like 100% like full blooded, I think too. Um, so I mean, there is like people that I know that are native like me, like have. I think her name is I forget her name, but she's always on the Night Watch's show. But yeah, I think she's native, and then obviously Carrie too, which she had said that she's got a little bit. So it's cool to know that there's people that have native like that, like me. I just learned something new the other day. They are doing a Free Willy 5 movie after all these years. What do you think about this? Warner Bros. Is finally doing. Well, I don't really know those films, honestly. I never heard of Free Willy before, so I've never heard of Free Willy, so I have no clue what you're talking about. But anyways, getting back on topic, talking about slashers and whatnot. Um, you know, we're not gonna be talking about politics on here for long. Um, we're not gonna be talking about America. We're not gonna be talking about none of that because that's not what I do in the channel. Like we talk about horror, movies. We don't talk about. I don't try to. I don't really like politics, even though sometimes I'll like give you like my honest opinion. I don't really like politics. This is a horror channel, not a political channel. I don't want to. I don't care like what people say about certain stuff about like Donald Trump and like Joe. Like I don't really care about none of that. This is all just political. And of course, there's a lot of people out there that do get into that stuff, like the older people, which that's totally fine. That's what you like. I mean, whatever. But for me, as a young kid, as a young, as a young person, I'm not into that. It's okay. Other people are, but that's just not for me. My favorite horror movies are Halloween and Scream movies. I don't know why, but Scream has always been my favorite horror franchise. And oh, yeah, Scream. The reason why, yeah, Scream has always been my favorite, and the reason why it may be your favorite is because of the whodunit factor. You know, like again, it's just more like humanly. It's more, um, you don't know who the killer is, and every like you get different killers in every film. It's more humanly, no supernaturalness in it. No, it's not supernatural. So I mean, I completely understand that. Like Scream is my number one as well. It always has been because of that. Like because of the who done it factor. You know, like those are the reasons why Scream is always. I think Scream is the best franchise out of like any other slasher. Like it's the most like realistic franchise in terms of like who like it's just more realistic. It's more human. Um, and I actually made a video about that. There's people out there that I guess that think that Scream is not that really great of a film. Like people say that the Ghostface character is whack. They don't like the character at all. They crap on the character all the time. They always say like he's silly, you know, all that stuff. But the reason why a lot of people don't really relate to Scream is because that they think that all horror movies have to be like supernatural, if you know what I mean. So people think that Ghostface has to be like a Jason, like a Michael Myers, which I don't agree with that. Like I think horror could be whatever. I think it could be whatever it wants to be. Like it doesn't have to be one specific thing like a supernatural or but that's the way people look at it. Like they think that the Scream films, they think that Ghostface should have been um they think that Ghostface should have been like a supernatural type character, like Jason, like Michael Myers, you know, which I don't think the Scream films would be as good if that was the case. Even though I wouldn't have minded it, I just think like the who done it factor again, they fits it better, especially the look of the mask, the look of like the costume, whatnot. This it fits, it fits the whole who done it, factor. So I personally don't think it would have made sense to make the Ghostface character supernatural, like one person, like just one person, like Michael Myers, like Jason, you know. But of course, that's what people always want. Like people think that horror has to be just that, which I don't agree with that. And that's what people they view it at. That's the way people view it. Like they think that horror has to be just supernatural and just like one thing. Like, but I think it could be whatever it wants to be. Like so. Yeah, that's the reason why Scream has always been like my personal favorite, my number one because of that. Like, because it's the more like realistic franchise. It's more humanly again. And don't get me wrong, Halloween and Friday the 13th, I love those franchises, of course. But I'm just saying, like the humanly aspect is why it's my number one. Because it's basically like forensic files. If you like, it's like forensic files of like horror. That's what it is. I think of slashers, anyways. Um, There's another reason why Scream, the first one, was very special to me because I was 6 years old when I saw the first film, and I watched it with my older sister because my mom said sorry. Oh yeah, and honestly, I wasn't even born in '96. I wasn't even around when that film came out. And I'm being honest with you guys, like I was not around when that film came out. But the reason how okay, so the story behind how I became a Scream fan. I mean, I've explained it before, like how I became a Scream fan. Um, Obviously, I was not born when the first film came out, but the way I became a Scream fan was when I grew up on. So when I was a little kid, I guess okay. So when I was a little kid, I had a friend that had like the box set or whatever. It was basically like one of those old school box sets with like all three movies. Um, and I would like borrow it from her or whatever. Um, we just like borrow it, watch them. But I borrowed it from a friend, and basically I watched Scream 3 like first. So Scream 3 was the first like Scream film that I've ever watched. And then when I went back and watched like later on, I went back and watched the other ones. And from that point on, I was just in like Scream really like I was like obsessed with it in a way. Like it was like my favorite because of Scream 3. So that I just kind of I became a fan like that because when I watched Scream 3, I was like, I have to go watch the other ones, you know. So yeah, that's basically how I became like a Scream fan because I didn't really like know what it was until I would borrow like the box set from a friend at first. So yeah, that's basically how I became a Scream fan. How I became what got me so attached to those films. Just watching the third film, of course, which is crazy that that's the first film that I watched, the first Scream film. Because obviously that came out in 2000. So obviously I was probably around 3 years old, maybe even 2 years old when that film came out. So from that point on, I just really, really, I became a fan at that point. Um, and yeah, that's crazy because my mom would like let me basically okay. I would like basically like sneak and watch it, which I wasn't really allowed to, I guess, because I was like what like 3 years old, maybe even 4 years old. But yeah, I remember my mom used to let me watch it. For like you would think that your parents wouldn't let you watch it at all, but especially at that age. Yeah, I was actually born in '98. Um, so when you were 16 in '98, I wasn't even born yet. I was born in July of 1998. Um, just say this in Scream 7. Sydney is having a nightmare. She's in her house. She sees Ghostface take off the mask and attack her and says, "Surprise, Sydney." And oh yeah, I heard you say that before. I remember we talked about that. Like if like Stu, the killer unmasks, and all of a sudden he says that line from the very first Scream. And I would like that a lot. I just want to see like her reaction. Like if Stu actually comes back, I want to see her reaction, to it. And same with Gail too. But honestly, I think Gail is possibly going to die in this film. Like I truly believe that. Um, but if she does die, I'd rather her die in like the final act, like saving like Gail or saving Sydney. Excuse me. Um, I'd rather her die saving Sydney at the end. Possibly like what's the say like Stu like ends up killing her or something like at the end. Well, I mean something like that would be. I think, and I know I don't want Gail to die. Of course, we don't want any of the OGs to die. But honestly, at some point you got to move on. Like we were saying that before when Scream 6 came out, that eventually you have to move on. You can't keep the same characters for like you can't keep the same characters forever. Like you have to basically add like new characters and new generation of characters. Uh, Sadly, I wish that we could keep Gail forever. I wish we could keep Sydney forever, but that's just not the case. Like we're not going to be able to keep Sydney. We're not going to be able to keep Gail. We're not going to be able to keep them forever like that. There's going to be a new generation of characters that are going to be coming in. Like newer ones, along with like I was saying, like Sam, like Melissa Barrera and like Jenna Ortega. Well, even though like Melissa Barrera is not in the film because she got fired, she was still like a new like generation, like a new character, like um basically for the new generation. You know what I mean? And Jenna Ortega too. So yeah, and also yeah. So at some point we're not going to have any of the OGs. We're not going to have Sydney no more. We're not going to have Gail no more. We already lost. We already lost Dewey. You know, Dewey got end up getting killed. So we're not going to end up with anyone like. At some point, we're not going to end up with what we only got two more OGs left, and that's obviously Gail and that's Sydney. Those are the only two. They're the only ones. And that's not going to last. Sadly, I wish that we could keep him forever, but that's just not realistic. Do you think there's any chance that Sydney secretly and is afraid to know that Sue is still alive? She doesn't want to believe it. Well, I do think that there is a chance, but at the same time, I don't really know if she actually like knows. Um, but I do think that Dewey knew. Like I think Dewey knew the whole time, and this is just my theory. I think that Dewey knew that she was alive or that Stu was alive. And he just didn't want to. He didn't want to tell Sydney. He didn't want to tell Gail. I truly believe that because you got to remember in that scene when they were basically going over the rules in Scream 5, when they're at like Martha's house or whatever, he was like basically talking about Stu in like the present tense. So when you talk about somebody in the present tense, well, that means that you must know something that nobody else does. So I think that Dewey possibly knew. I feel like he possibly knew the whole time and didn't want Sydney and like Gail to know. I guess that makes sense. Like he didn't want them to like. He didn't want to like tell them, basically. That's just what I think, anyways. That's just my theory. Like I think that he possibly knew, probably going back, let's say all the way back to Scream 3. Because again, why are you going to talk about somebody in the present tense, Well, that's usually a sign. Again, when you talk about somebody in the present tense, that's usually a sign that that person's alive, that person's still like around. So, because you're not talking about him in the past tense. You're talking about him in the present tense. So that means that he would have known then. Like he had to have known. I think he did. Just say this: Gail is their Gail's gonna get killed by Ghostface, and she here's Stu. Why isn't he? I have no idea about like all that, but I do think that Gail is gonna die, 100%, 100%. Like either, okay. The reason why I think she's gonna die for sure is because she almost did in Scream 6, which I thought for a fact that she was gonna die, but I ended up being wrong. She almost did, and I thought for sure, when she got like attacked, I thought for sure she was gonna die, in that moment. But I was obviously wrong, and that's the reason why I think that there's. I think that she's. I think she's. I think it's her time. You know. That's just my personal opinion. Because you also got to remember in Scream 4, um, she actually wanted her character to get killed off. She actually, Wes Craven, she had to ask, Wes Craven, like, you know, that she could get killed off. But Wes Craven didn't like that idea. He didn't want her. He didn't want to kill her off or anything. You know, um, But now thinking about it, like now, it's a possibility because again, and yeah, it's not like Courtney Cox had said. People say that she wouldn't get killed off unless she wanted to, but at the same time, I don't agree with that because I think that they're gonna have that idea to kill her off. They're not gonna. She's not gonna be the one that wants to. Um. So, like, yeah, I just think that it's her time. I think it's her time to go. Like, sadly, and I want to keep her forever, but sadly, that's just not the case. We're not going to be able to keep her forever. That same with Sydney. We're not going to be able to keep her like for forever. Like at some point, we're not going to have them at all. Like we're not going to have any of the OGs. You know, basically, we're going to just have new generation of characters. Rather, if Melissa Barrera comes back or Jenna Ortega comes back, and like in the future, which I do think that there will be more Scream films in the future, like even after Scream 7. Like Scream 7, I don't think is going to be the last film. Like, I truly don't believe that. Like, these films just make a lot, like too much money for them to just quit making them. But I don't think that Scream 7 is going to be the last. There's definitely going to be more after that, like in the future. There's definitely going to be a Scream 8, Scream 9. It's going to keep on going, I think. Because again, these movies just make too much money, and I could see a scenario where Scream 7 is going to be basically like the ending of like the Sydney story. I think it's going to be the end of like this current timeline that obviously that they're in, of course. So, and when they make another one in the future, it's going to be a whole different timeline, I think. So that's just my opinion. What do you think of the idea of Sydney having nightmares about Stu being alive and she doesn't want to believe he's alive? What do you think about this idea? Well, I honestly don't really like that idea, to be honest. I'd much rather her, I'd much rather see her reaction to Stu, when he unmasked. I'd rather her not have nightmares. I just don't think, like, her having nightmares, okay, like, yeah, I mean, that idea sounds like cool and all, but at the same time, I think I would rather see her like reaction, you know, like him, basically her this being surprised instead of having like a dream or a nightmare. Because again, if she has a nightmare, well, that's really, to me, that's not as fun because at that point she basically already knows. So I'd much rather her like be surprised by it than already like knowing, that he's alive. I think that's the way I would do it. If I was like a writer, that's the way I would do it. I would do it to where, she obviously Stu gets revealed at the end of the film, of course, at the very end. And she's like, surprised. by it, like basically in shock. I think like having her like if she had like a dream or something, I just feel like that's not as fun because again, she already like basically like no, you know what I mean? As to where she didn't have a dream at all, she would basically like be shocked. She'd be like shocked by it, like so. I personally don't really care for that idea. I think that will ruin the whole like thing. Just say that there is a lot of Ghostface killings of people being absolutely gutted, and they're training investigate the crimes, but Sydney doesn't want to believe. She doesn't want to believe it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's why I think it's better to have her like be shocked by it than having her already like, basically like no, like would you be offended if they found a Native American actor? No, not at all. As long as they don't do nothing stupid, because obviously there is a lot of racism, all over the world. I feel like personally when they had a black person, obviously, and um, Scream 3, right? And I'm not trying to be racist or anything like that, but I feel like they always did something like they've always like killed off like the black person first, or like feels like somebody with a different race. They would always like do something stupid to them. Like that's just my feeling. Like when Scream 2, there was two black actors, two black characters that got killed in the opening scene, and then in Scream 3, you had a black character get thrown off the balcony, like thrown out the window, basically. Like, you know, I mean, stuff like that is just they kill off. It seems like they kill off the black people in a stupid ways. And I'm not trying to be like racist or anything, but that's what it seems like. Um, so personally, I wouldn't mind if they had a Native American actor in there as long as they don't do anything like stupid, like and like kill them off like in the opening scene or because then that at that point that shows me that you're racist. Like if they do finally kill Gale, I want to watch. Or I want to listen to Stu's voice underneath the mask before he kills her. Oh, that would be awesome. Like if you could just hear his voice like behind the mask. I get what you're saying. How many people have you seen dressed up as Ghostface for Halloween where you live? I mean, I see quite. I see a lot. I feel like there's a lot more people that dress up as Ghostface more than anybody, like any other horror villain. Personally, like I don't really see anybody dressed up as Jason, Michael Myers, really as much anymore. I feel like there's a lot more people dressed up as Ghostface because, again, it's just like the mask and everything about it is just iconic, And I feel like there's a lot more people. including me when I was a kid, I would like dress up as Ghostface more than I would Jason, Michael Myers. You know, so I it's just because it's just the look. You know, it's iconic, and everybody nobody really cares about being Michael Myers as much or Jason. You know, seems like there's a lot more people that dress up as Ghostface because again, it's just iconic. You know, the look and just the costume. You know, in general, it's just iconic. There's a lot of people. I mean, yeah, there's maybe a small portion of people that dress up as Michael Myers still. I mean, and Jason. I mean, there's a lot of people that still dress up as Jason and Michael Myers. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like Ghostface is like people dress up as Ghostface more than any other like icon. Personally, it's just because it's just iconic. Like the mask is iconic, just the costume, you know. How they gotta find the characters that place in it and then recap their in the remain, or how are they going to find out? Um, that's a really good question actually, and that's something that I've been talking about. About a Scream remake. Um, and yeah, and I've been saying that I do not want it because a lot of people, a lot of people, and I've already said I've already seen it before. Like, a Rob Zombie made Halloween. I think he ruined it. He basically just had the same characters, just different actors playing them. And I think that if they do a Scream remake, well, it's basically going to be the same thing. You're basically going to have a Dewey wannabe. You're going to have a wannabe Sydney, a wannabe Gail. You're going to have a wannabe Randy. Uh, and that's basically what they're going to do. And they're going to basically rehash. I'm afraid that they're going to rehash 1996. If they do a remake, like I feel like they're going to try to remake Scream 1996 when Scream 1996 was a classic. It doesn't need to be, remade, like that's just my, I guess, kind of like my fear about like over that. Like I just feel like if they do make a remake, like do a remake of Scream, I feel like they're going to remake Scream 1996, which I don't want to see that because Scream 1996 is, a classic film and doesn't need to be remade, in my opinion. It was great. You don't need to do anything with it. Um, if they decided to, okay, if they decided to make like do a remake and do like their own thing, well, that's totally different, conversations there. Like, if they're gonna do something different, do their own thing, then I wouldn't mind that. But if they're gonna do a remake of Scream 1996, no, you can't have that because I just feel like you're at that point. You're basically saying that Scream 1996 wasn't good enough, so you're gonna remake it. You know what I mean? Scream 1996 is a classic. It's nothing's ever gonna be better than that film. Like there, even if you like again like remake it, it's not gonna be as good. Because you're basically remaking it. And that's basically the thing that I have a problem with, with remakes in general. Just it's when they like rehash, I guess, like the same scenes from like the older films, which that's the main issue that I had. That's why I had a problem with Rob Zombie's Halloween. Like, okay, like the first Rob Zombie's Halloween was good, but it wasn't great. I would say it was better than the second film. But you see what I'm saying? Like the first film, as you like, I didn't really mind that they explained, Michael or anything, but I just didn't like the facts. I didn't like the actor who played, Dr. Loomis. I didn't like, the actor who played, Laurie Strode. They basically made her look like a complete like dickhead, and also made Dr. Loomis look like a dickhead too. Like, which Dr. Loomis, if you go back and watch the older films, Dr. Loomis was never like that. Like, he was never a dickhead to people. He was never, writing a book about someone, especially about Michael. All of a sudden, like, that's basically my only issue when they rehash, and then when they rehash the same scenes, from the original, like, instead of doing like their own thing, like basically rehashing the same scenes from Halloween 1978, which that's you're basically saying that those scenes weren't good enough, so you have to remake that scene to, I guess, make it a little better, just because you think that it's not good enough. That's the way I look at it. Um, when people do that, like when like directors do that in studios, when they remake a film and they just rehash the same scenes, and of course you got people that are going to compare them. Oh, which one's better? Is it the original or the remake? And it's just like that part's the most annoying. When people like, oh well, which one's better, the original or the remake? Like, of course the original. You know, that's probably like the most annoying part about all that. Like, they basically like compare and let's say which one's better, and then they always say, oh well, Rob Zombie's Halloween just had better kills and more graphic kills. Yeah, okay, you're right. You have a right to have your own opinion, but at the end of the day, back in the '70s, like especially in '78, they didn't have as much technology as they do now. So to say just because the graphic kills and all that, and oh well, the kills just look a lot better, oh this and that. Well, I mean that's just your opinion, but you know back in the day in the '70s, as I was saying in the '80s, they didn't have that technology. They didn't have technology like they do now. So it's not really fair to say. It's not fair to say, you know, to say that just because the new film has better kills, it has more gore, it has more blood, and all that makes it better than the older ones. Which that's just, to me, I don't agree when people say that, especially when people say that John Carpenter is better than Rob Zombie, or when people say Rob Zombie is better than John Carpenter, excuse me. Like, and that's just not realistic. Like, if you really, really think that Rob Zombie is better than John Carpenter, well, that's just your view, your opinion. But John Carpenter, he's the one that created the Halloween films. He's the one that originated it. So you always got to go back, and you always got to go with the original, like the director that originated it, as opposed to going with somebody that have only made two films, like remakes. you know um so in my eyes, there is no Rob Zombie. There's no Rob Zombie if it wasn't for John Carpenter. Because if John Carpenter hadn't created, Halloween like that, I don't think Rob Zombie wouldn't even exist. Like he wouldn't have done a remake. But of course, that's just my opinion about remakes in general. That's basically like my main fear about, if they do a Scream remake. Like my main fear is that they're going to remake Scream 1996, and you definitely don't want that. You don't want to do that. Like I said earlier about Ghostface losing or killing people, absolutely gutted. What is wrong with this idea? He got instead of normal stab. Uh, what's wrong with what idea? Like, I don't understand like what you mean. Like, do you mean like in terms of like because he uses a buck knife and doesn't use like other weapons, or because honestly, I personally think that I've been saying that for a while. Like, I want to see Ghostface, using other weapons. I want to see him using wrenches, crowbars, shotguns, even or machine guns. I mean, we've seen him use a shotgun in Scream 6, and I thought that was brutal. And I actually like that a lot. Um, so I would actually like him. I would like them to do like more with him. Like because I know that the buck knife is his like primary weapon, and of course that's like his main weapon. But I feel like they need to be more like creative. Like they need to like do something to where he grabs like a wrench. He grabs like maybe like a bat or something. Uh maybe like what else? What else am I thinking of? So obviously a wrench, a hammer, or an axe, which I think an axe may be too maybe a little too brutal, but something different. And just because his weapon, his primary weapon is, the butt knife, you still could do something creative. Like you don't have to do the same old thing over and over and over. Like that's just my opinion. Like, and I just want to see more creativeness all around. Why do you think Ghostface is becoming more popular again? Did Jason, Freddy, and Michael? Why do you think Ghostface has become a lot more popular? Well, I think Ghostface has become more popular because, again, the Scream films are just it's a whodunit film. you know. And I feel like people relate to. There's a lot of people that relate to that more, because it's more like humanly, um, as opposed to Ghost or like Jason, Freddy Krueger, and like Michael Myers. Like people relate to Scream a lot more, and it's a lot funner, you know. And I think it is too. I think it's a lot like funner because you have to, I guess, like guess who the killer is in like every film, which that's a lot of fun. And so that's why I think the Scream films are like more popular. Like I'm not saying they're like more popular, but they're definitely more like they're becoming more popular. Like people are becoming more excited for the Scream films than they are, Halloween and all that because again, the who done it factor, you know. It's like the forensic files of of slasher films. So people, you know, people find that fun. I do too. Like again, like find you basically having to like figure out who the killer is in every film. That's to me that's fun. So of course people are gonna relate to that, and people are gonna like that idea more because you simply got to like figure stuff out. You gotta be like, hey, basically just give your like theories and like guess who the killer is. Like, you know. So I think that's why Scream is becoming, I guess, more popular than Halloween and Friday the 13th now because again the who done it part. You know what I mean? People find that to be funner, and I do too. After Scream 5 came out, I was watching this video on YouTube. This guy bought a black Ghostface mask, and he's black. People got fairly racially offended by it. Why is that? Well, I don't really know because obviously a black mask is like really, really nothing. A black mask is just a black mask. Um, so I really don't know. I really don't have an answer for that. Maybe they just felt a little offended because I don't know. There's a lot of people that get offended by a lot of stuff nowadays because there is a lot of racism, in this country. So a lot of people, there's a lot of racism all over the world. So I mean, I don't really understand like why people were offended by that, but that's kind of weird because the mask, all it was. But hey, I guess people got. I can't read nobody's mind. I have no idea like why they were offended by that, but no idea honestly. If they do a remake of Scream, would they be allowed to use the actual stew house again? Yeah, I do think so. And the reason why I think so is because obviously I think the reason why they couldn't use it in Scream 5 was because of like either COVID or money. But I think the main reason was obviously I think COVID. I think COVID like interfered. So they obviously were forced to like make like a replica version of it, like I think the actress who plays Samantha from the TV series Cobra Kai and Marriott, I think she'll be the perfect Sidney Prescott. Yeah, for sure. I think so as well. There's a lot of actors out there that could definitely play her, but again, I don't want to see a remake, but there's gonna be a remake. I already know. I just don't want them to remake Scream 1996. That's the only problem. That I have. Because at that point, you're just basically telling everyone that it's not, that wasn't good enough. No, I mean, just saying Scream 7 Ghostface is killing, and there's people being absolutely good, and the people from the past, I know who it is, who might be responsible, but they can't prove it's Stu with this idea. Yeah, that's actually, I get what you're saying. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of stuff that you could do. But yeah, there's just a big thing like with people that I guess like, okay, there's people that say, okay, like I kind of want to change like the topic just a little bit. Okay, it goes back to what I said about horror. Like like that people say that it all has to be supernatural, but I was saying that it could be whatever it wants to be, and also, you know, people. I don't know. People just don't really like Scream. I don't know why there's a lot of people that just don't like it. It's mostly because, again, maybe it's because they feel like he needs to be like, they feel like the character needs to be more like supernatural, but and they view him as, I guess, like as a silly, like a weird character, like a silly character that you know where they basically call him a bum, they call him a loser, whatever. Like they call the Ghostface character like a bum. Uh, those people, I guess, are entitled to their own opinion. But all I'm saying is that horror does not need to be supernatural. Like it doesn't. Not all of it, anyways. Like just like when people always say that Ghostface, isn't. Oh well, Ghostface isn't iconic. Well, the Ghostface mask is not, or Ghostface is not an icon. And the only reason why people say that is because he's not supernatural. If he was supernatural, people would be calling him an icon. Like no problem. But now, since he's more humanly, since we get new killers in every film, he's not considered an icon all of a sudden. Like, you know, just because he's more humanly. And also too, Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter's another one, that people view as, oh, well, he's not an icon. Well, he is. Even though he's human, like a real human, like Ghostface is, and even though he could die easily, he's still considered to be an icon, no matter how humanly he is. You know, That's just my opinion on that. Like, you don't have to be. I don't think you have to be supernatural, like basically to be like iconic. If you know what I'm saying. And everybody out there, oh well, the Scream mask, the Ghostface mask. You know, the reason why Scream did so good was because the Ghostface mask. So you're basically saying that the mask, that Scream only did good because the look of the mask. That's because the like, that's ridiculous to say. Everybody I guess has their own opinion. You know, they have their own opinion on on stuff. And I'm not gonna sit here and bash. I'm not gonna sit here and bash anyone for their opinion. Everyone has their own views about certain like franchises, certain movies. But when you say idiotic stuff like that, say that the only reason why it did good was because of the mask, then you seriously like lost me. I'm sorry. Like you can't be that idiotic like to say the only reason why that's the only reason why it did good. Like, you know. But at the end of the day, everybody has their own opinion, you know. Why don't you think of Jaws remake that would be a good idea, people? Well, I'm not saying Jaws. I'm saying I don't want a Scream remake. I don't want to Scream. I don't want them to remake Scream 1996. I think that would be a huge, huge red flag for me. Like, because again, Scream 1996 is iconic. There's no reason why. There's no reason why you should be. There's no reason why you should remake that film. Because it was a masterpiece. I would love to see a horror movie version of the Titanic. What do you think about this idea? Well, I'm not really a big fan of the Titanic personally, but I mean, hey, I wouldn't mind it as long as they do it good, you know, and they don't ruin it. But I'm not personally a fan of the Titanic films, personally. But hey, I think that would be a pretty good horror film. I wouldn't mind that. They did like something like similar to Titanic, like something like that. if I was gonna make my own horror film, like my own like slasher would say, well, I'm just gonna tell you like what I would personally do. All right. So this is my idea. So my idea is obviously, so if I was to create like my own like horror film, my own like slasher, I would do something to where like a murder mystery kind of film, but not like a screen, like kind of similar to Scream, but then again, like have it be just like a regular killer with no mask, no nothing. Um, and I would basically what I would do is it would be like, let's just say that there's like a whole bunch of like dead bodies, right? Well, let's just say that they basically don't know who's like killing them. Well, let's just say like finally at the end they finally find out, and it's actually like, not saying that this person has to have a costume on or anything like that, but they just like a normal person, or even, I mean, they could have a costume on, like some kind of mask, but I think what that's what I would do. So basically, what I mean is, let's just say it's like a murder mystery kind of film, right? Where people like when people like get like killed, they don't know who did it or whatever, and they just see like dead bodies all over the place. Well, that's what I'm talking about, kind of like a murder mystery kind of film. Maybe with some kind of maybe like a mask, but also maybe just like a real human, like with no mask, just a person that that's evil, Um, if that makes sense. Even though I don't know how like people would like that, that idea, because everybody wants to like see kill, see killing. They want to see like action, Um, but that's basically what I would do. What to say, like when this person like kills someone, like you just don't like see his face, you only see like the weapon, but then at the end or whatever, you see who it is at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like, so something like that, if that makes sense. Kind of like, somebody just sees a random like a dead body in the woods, and they can't figure out who's killing people. They can't figure out nothing. Like, then obviously eventually at the end they find out or whatever, like something like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, even though I know there's a lot of people that like they want to see like action, so like my style of film wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to see the action or anything like that. Like, so I guess a lot of people wouldn't like that, because a lot of people would rather see the killer actually. They would rather see the action. Um, but I don't know. I was just kind of thinking like idea. That would be like my idea. It'd be like I guess like a murder mystery kind of film, but it would be like a real human, like meaning that it would be like a real human with like no mask, just a human that's evil. You know what I mean? Just a regular person. And basically meaning it's kind of similar to Scream, where everybody's just like pointing fingers at each other, pointing fingers, trying to get one another, in trouble, you know, but without like the mask, without a costume. I don't know how people would like that, but I guess that's kind of my idea. Yeah, I think in where the werewolf movie franchises, I think there are too many male werewolves. I'm not mashing male werewolf. I think we need more female. Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of werewolf films, but how come there's a lot more racism towards Native Americans more than the white African Americans? Not the race. Well, the reason why I think that there's more racism towards Native Americans is because Native Americans, obviously, we do like certain like ceremonies and all that. Like we do like this. It's kind of similar to like religion, I guess, in a way. And people kind of make fun of that, say stuff like, "Oh well, you guys, you just basically smoke a pipe." Um, you know, they say stupid stuff like that. Oh well, you just dance around the fire, like they think that's all that Native really is, but it isn't. Like being Native American is not about that at all. Not just about that, anyways. There's more to it. So basically, we had like get-togethers called obviously. It's like a Native American like gathering where we all like gather together and like hang out with each other um and yeah, people don't like that. Like people are racist towards that because I don't know. They just don't like. I guess I don't know. They just don't like. I guess they get kind of. They just don't like natives. I guess you know because we also got to realize too that Native Americans we were here a lot like first like way before white people were. And I'm not trying to be like political on here, um but we were here way before white people were here. So people look at that and say, well, we're gonna send you to India, or we're gonna send you to the Navajo tribe. We're gonna send you to back to Mexico, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, we were here first, and so people got to acknowledge that, and that's the reason why I think people, I guess, hate on why they're so racist towards natives. Now, I've seen a lot of racism towards blacks as well. Like the racism towards blacks is the same, as people being racist towards natives. Like people don't give blacks respect at all. I don't feel like there's just too much racism, too much hate in the world. So I don't know. That's how I feel. Like, and I'm not trying to be political, not trying to be political or anything like that, but you know, like people don't truly like understand. You know, they look at us and say, well, you guys just smoke pipes. That's all you do. Oh well, you just dance around the fire. You know what I mean? Like people always come up with stupid remarks, like that. Um, yeah, it's crazy. And what's happened, over there in the Standing Rock or whatever. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but Standing Rock in North Dakota, I believe it was. Um, they basically, you know, there's a lot of bad stuff that was going on there. Like it's a kind of a long story. I can't really explain it, but yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff happening there. Like a lot of hatred, a lot of just racism. Police officers basically just arresting natives for no reason. Doing just nasty stuff. Kind of like similar to black people. Like where again, I'm not trying to be racist, but similar to black people. There's a lot of racism towards black people as well. Like it's not just natives. It's basically like okay, like natives, yeah, they get the most like jealousy because we were here first before anyone, you know. And I'm just being honest. We were here way before any white person. Like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to anyone, to any like white people, but that's just the honest truth. And so, so are they here to Australia? How does something called the stolen generation where were taken the families? What are the Native American children the same way? I'm not really 100% on any of that. I just don't want to get like too political on the channel because obviously this is a horror channel, and I really don't want to get into politics. Oh, I understand. I sometimes it's kind of hard not to be political at times especially when you need to speak the truth about stuff. It's kind of hard to not be political at times because you try to be as truthful as you can be. At times. And it's just kind of hard because you gotta. Even though I'm not a fan of politics, it's just sometimes hard to not like speak the truth about all of it. You know what I mean? Like basically like my feelings. So I completely get that. With your tribes, what animal is it? Okay, I feel like you're kind of getting a little too like aggressive, when you ask that. Um, but obviously probably bears because obviously I'm a bear. I'm basically like because every native has like a clan, like a certain clan of that they were born with. Well, I'm Bear Clan, so obviously I'd have to go with bears. But we need to kind of slow down a little bit because I feel like you're kind of offending me a little bit. When you ask questions like that, because I know that you kind of want to know that you kind of want to know. You just want to know more, but I feel like you're kind of offending me a little bit, just a little bit. It's not really offending me that much, but we need it. Got to get back to horror now. Can't. I'm not gonna talk about all that. I'm not gonna talk about what we respect more, like what we like. Come on, man. Like this is a horror channel. This isn't a political channel. And I know that you want to know more about natives, but just like I would like to know more about Australians. You know what I mean? So I'm not. Yeah, just we got to get back to horror. I'm not gonna talk about politics because again, that's just not my thing. Um, even though again, sometimes I have to come out and I got to speak the truth, and people want my opinion, I give it, and some people don't. That's all it is. So sometimes I guess it's hard to not be political, especially when you have an opinion about something, and you just want to like basically get like your own like your opinion. But anyways, yeah, we're gonna get back to horror talk now. That's what this channel is. We're not gonna go off topic like that. So that's not what I do on the channel. And listen, man, I'm trying to be nice as nice as possible, but we got to stick to horror. You can't just keep we can't you can't keep changing topics. All right, that's what the this channel is. Again, I'm not trying to be rude to you or nothing like that, but again, and the only reason why I haven't blocked you yet is because the only reason why I haven't timed you out is because I'm not that type of person. You know what I mean? I'm basically friendly with everyone. You know what I mean? I don't disrespect people. I like to be friends with everyone. I like everyone to have fun. Theorizing with me. That's really the only reason why I have not timed you out. Because I'm nice. You know what I mean? I'm not that type of person to. I want to be friendly with everyone. So That's cool. I'm sorry. No, you're all right. I'm just saying, like, you know, I don't want to get into all that stuff. I just don't. I just feel like it's kind of offends me in a lot of ways. Okay, it's one thing if you ask me questions about like what we do, or like ask me questions like what do you guys like, where's your tribe at, like what do you guys like, you know I mean, stuff like that. I don't really mind. I mean, I understand you want to know more about Native Americans and all, but I'm not gonna get into all that on here on this channel. Like this is a horror channel. We're supposed to keep it to horror, um, and I don't want to get too political on here. As I was saying, don't want to get into race or anything like that. So, did you say the 1995 movie Cat? No, no, I never said anything about Casper. Oh, I get what you mean. So you're asking me if the 1995 movie Casper is a horror movie? Oh, I mean, yeah, no. I mean, yeah, I would say kind of depends on, I guess. I think Casper is more like Ghostbusters, so I guess it's kind of like horror if you want to call it that. So I guess I would kind of consider it to be horror. It's kind of hard and difficult. Um, I think it's more. I would say probably it's horror and also at the same time like adventure too, like an adventure film. Like I guess I wonder if there's any truth to Casper based on true story or based on true events. Or there was a boy about, or there was a story about a boy who died and he's still around in a ghost, oh, as a ghost. Yeah, I think that that movie is definitely considered to be kind of like horror and also possibly like adventure. Um, but yeah, it's definitely, I think it's considered to be horror because as you were saying, It's about like a kid who died basically, and it's basically like a kid who died, and he turned into a ghost. Obviously, his ghost is basically still around, like you were saying. So, man, sounds like a horror to me still, in a way. I mean, it's kind of difficult to like. I would say it's more of like an adventure film more than like horror. Even though I do think it's like both. Do think potentially it's definitely like both, but I don't really know. That's really difficult actually to say because I don't really know what to consider. Because obviously it's about a ghost, of course. But yeah, there's a movie that okay. There's a another horror film that I don't really care for. Right. Um. Obviously, you guys already know I don't care for the Leprechaun. I don't care for I don't care for the Leprechaun. I don't care for the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as much. Um, but there's another one that I don't really like either. It's another horror franchise that, or if you want to consider it to be I still call it a franchise. Um, and that's obviously the It movies. Now, I did like the very first Pennywise film. I always thought that that film was always like the best, like better than any of the newer ones that had come out that had came out anyways. Um, that's just my opinion. Like I just personally think Tim Curry was he was the OG, so I had to go with the OG, Pennywise. Uh, so I'm not really a bit like I don't know. I'm just not a big fan of the new ones that had came out. Like I feel like if he wouldn't have had like gotten to an accident or whatever, I think that's what happened. Um, to where now he's like in a wheelchair. I forget what happened, but if he wasn't in a wheelchair, I'm pretty sure that he would come back and play that role again. But sadly, sadly, we'll probably never be able to see him play, Pennywise ever again. Not probably, we won't. Sadly, and that's just sad because honestly, I think that he was the best. He was the best, Pennywise. Um, he played Pennywise the best, in my opinion. The new actor that plays Pennywise now is just not. I don't think he's as good personally, but that's just my opinion. When I saw the original, I was a little. I'm scared. I mean, pretty bad. But I still love clowns. It doesn't stop me from loving clowns. I love clowns, but they are scary and horrifying. Yeah, they are. I mean, I think clowns are like the scariest. Like people find clowns to be like the scariest thing in the world. Like, I mean, there's kids out there, and there's, when I was a kid. I mean, was I afraid of clowns in a way? Yeah, I guess kind of. But when I got older, I started like not being as scared. But yeah, clowns are like, I guess, like the scariest, like people are scared like the most of clowns for some reason. Maybe it's because the way they look. I have no idea, but maybe they just look like scarier to some people. Um, but personally, for me, I'm not afraid of clowns. I've never been afraid of clowns. Well, maybe when I was a kid, but when I got older, I was never scared of clowns. Tim Curry had a stroke. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, because I heard that. Yeah, because I think that's probably why he's in a wheelchair. But yeah, he can't really like do much no more. He can't walk no more. He can't do nothing, which is sad. That's the reason why. That's the reason why he's never going to return to play Pennywise. It's because of that. He's basically going to be like that the rest of his life. You know. Let me see real fast. Yeah, he's 78 years old right now. But yeah, he's definitely not going to be able to do anything like that like he used to when he was younger. Would you consider would you consider the Rocky Horror Picture Show movie horror? I've never really watched that before, so I have no idea. What do you think is more scarier, Michael Myers, Ghostface, or clowns? Hmm, that's a good question. Um, I would probably say Michael Myers. And the reason why I say Michael Myers is because, the thought that he could be anywhere in your house, you know, the fact that he stalks people, the fact that he could be anywhere, he could pop out of nowhere, like when you don't really like expect him to pop, like, you know what I mean? So I feel like he's scarier. Like Ghostface is scary as well. Like Ghostface is, you don't know like where he is, and he could be in your house, he could be in your closet, of course. But I just feel like Michael Myers has more intensity. It's more scary than a clown. A clown's really not, again, not as scary because like clowns, all they really are is they basically just have like balloons. That's it. So I think a lot of people find clowns to be more scary, I guess, because of that. But Um, but if I had to choose who's scarier, I would have to pick Michael Myers just because I feel like he stalks people. Number one, number two, you don't know where he could be at any time. He could be in your house when you don't even know, and basically just pop out of nowhere. So that's why I'm going with Michael Myers. Even though, yeah, I would not want to get chased by Ghostface or anything either. Like I wouldn't want any part of that. I wouldn't want anything to do with that. Like, because that is scary still. It is still scary because like even if it's a real human, it's still scary. The thought that a real human's basically just wants to kill, just to kill and just to do it. You know, but yeah, I'd have to go. I would probably have to go with Michael Myers because again, he just stalks, and I feel like he's just more intense. Before they did it, or before they did it remake, like how to get Tim Curry and his family permission to do the remake of it? I read that on the internet before they made it. Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't know, but it's just sad to see that he won't be able to play Pennywise no more because obviously his age and now he's in a wheelchair. He can't walk no more. So he can't do as much as he was as he used to now because obviously he's older. So what do you think they had to get Tim Curry's family's permission to do the remake? Uh, so you're asking me if they had to have Tim Curry's family's permission? I'm not sure. I have no idea about any of that personally. I have no idea. I still like the idea of horror killer Ronald McDonald. Yeah, I actually saw a fan film of somebody do. They did like a Ronald McDonald film, basically like a killer clown. Um, it was a pretty good fan film. You should definitely check it out. I think it was pretty good. Yeah, clowns in general. I'm really not afraid of clowns like that. You know, not no more, anyways. Not like I used to. But yeah, it's definitely. I mean, okay. Like when you're a kid, the thought of that, like it may sound a little scary, especially when you're like a kid. But when you get older, you tend to like grow out of that. Like when you're a kid, you think it's scary because you think that that clowns are like supposed to be like nice, and I guess basically they basically like give balloons to people, and they think that they're just nice, um, that they're supposed to be nice. Well, but then like some people are just scared. I got like, especially when you're a kid, you're scared of that, you know. Remember in Scream 4 was Sydney was having her book tour speech, they found Ghostface mask and bloody knife in a rental car. How did the killer get the knife and mask in the trunk without getting the scene? Well, maybe the killer did it like maybe that's a really good question. I really don't know. Maybe the killer, kind of like did it like really fast and didn't get caught. I mean, there's so many ways that people could do that. So yeah, I have no idea. Honestly, that's a good question too. Like because yeah, it was that day. It was during the day. So but anyways, guys, I think I'm going to call the night. Um, I've been going for at least like 4 hours now, and I think I'm gonna call it the night. Definitely had a lot of fun. Um, be sure to be on the lookout, obviously, for tomorrow night as well. We're gonna be talking about the Halloween franchise, of course. Um, so yeah, guys, I think I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you. Appreciate obviously Scott Walker. He's always in the chat, even though sometimes I have to tell him, because sometimes I just feel like he's a troll. But anyways, I still appreciate everyone. I still appreciate him for being here. He's always showing support. You know, when I go live, and I always see him in the chat. You know, it's nice. It's good. It's nice to see you. But anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well. Those of you that aren't subscribed, anyways, and obviously, yeah, hit that like button for me. That would definitely help me out a lot. Um, if you guys could, hit that like button. Um, but on that note, everyone, good night. See y'all tomorrow.